God damn it. Hey everyone, Justin here with High Priority again, and it's Chainsaw Day. Alright, I picked this little chainsaw up off of a local auction site. I had a bunch of vintage old chainsaws. They had everything from McCullough, Still, or Steel, I'm not sure how to say it, old home lights, old Echoes, a bunch of different stuff to choose from. And I did some research and I figured I'd place a bid on one. And I came across this nice little Echo that I kind of liked. It said it was missing a few parts, but it had compression. And I placed a bid. Well, I won it for $6.40. Yeah, that's right, $6.40. Granted, it didn't really look like this when I picked it up. It looked more like this. That's better. It was missing the clutch cover, didn't have a bar and chain on it. There was actually no air filter in the back. And that's pretty much it. But for $6.40, I figured, what did I have to lose? Pretty cheap. If I had to recycle it or toss it away, wasn't a big loss. Now the ad said that it had compression, so I figured I would check all the vitals out first before I started buying parts for it. So it said it had compression, so I figured I'd check that with my compression gauge. Compression checked out about 125 to 130, so that was good. And then next was on to spark. Checked out the spark, and the spark was looking actually pretty good, which is a really good thing. Maybe I got lucky because I don't know how it would be to buy any kind of ignition components or anything for a saw that's from the mid 70s to the late 70s. So I'm glad that that aspect was okay. I have seen some parts on eBay that they're selling used stuff that supposedly is good, but that's a risk, you know, that you're willing to take if you go that route. Next was the fuel system. I went ahead and pulled the carb off and just really cleaned it out. I actually found online a website called EReplacementParts, and they show a bunch of really cool schematics and parts for this saw. So I kind of use this as a guide to disassemble the carb and clean it and put it all back together. Also checked out the fuel tank, and I noticed there was no fuel line in the fuel tank. So I went on EReplacementParts, tried to find a fuel line. Well, it is out of stock. It's actually this line right here. It's a rubber line. It's got a little filter on the end of it, and it plugs onto this nipple here. This line here was actually okay. This is the one that runs to the carb. That one looked like it was in okay shape, but this one had literally disintegrated and turned to goo inside the fuel tank. Actually, the oil line did the same thing in the oil tank, but we will get to that here in just a minute. Seems to be my luck with fuel tanks lately. If you haven't seen my other videos on my little ATC, you can check it out up here. I haven't had the good luck with fuel tanks, so hopefully this one's a little bit easier than that one. So I decided to do a little Googling to see if I could find something that would work for a fuel line for this, since this one is discontinued. And I actually found this one on Amazon. And this is actually for a Steel MS210, MS230 chainsaw fuel line. Now this is the one I picked up. It came with a filter and it was this whole rubber line. But this is not the actual shape that I needed for my particular saw. I didn't need this big round grommet, so I went ahead and snipped that off, and then I just cut this down to length and then stuck it down inside the fuel tank and put it on the little nipple with needle nose pliers. So alright, now we have the fuel system taken care of, the carb's been cleaned, so now we gotta move on to the oil line. Well, the oil line was in the same manner. It was turned to goo. While the oil line is needed on this saw, it's got an automatic oiler. That means when the motor runs, there's actually a little valve that pumps oil and lubricates the bar and the chain. So there's an oil line in a tank, and that was also gone. So I started searching for that, went back to apparently my favorite page of EReplacementParts and looked up the oil line, and here it is. This line right here plugs onto a barb here. Here's actually the oil pump. It's got a spring and it rides on a lobe on the crankshaft. and that's what pumps the oil out. But here's our little line we needed. And the little filter here was actually still in the bottom of the tank, so I just cleaned it up and reused it. Here they have it right there. They've got 7 available. So I ordered that fuel line and ordered a few other odds and ends I needed there, some hardware, and got the oil system all set up. So now we're pretty much to the point of having a running saw. Granted, no bar and chain and no clutch cover, but we can at least see if we can get this thing to run. Now initially, once I got it all together, I pulled and cranked and tried to start, and the thing would just kind of fire and pop and fart and not want to take off. Well, the problem was I didn't have the carburetor properly set. There's a high and low jet for idle and then for wide open throttle, and those weren't set. So I actually went on Echo's website and I found that they have PDF files of old manuals, old operation manuals. So I found the operation manual for the CS302 and scrolled through and then figured out how to adjust the high and low jets. So got those adjusted and got the saw all put back together for not having to buy any actual hard parts yet, and we'll see if it'll run. Great success. We have a running and operating saw. Some of the last few pieces I still need to find are a bar and chain, which should be pretty easy. They carry a lot of different bar and chains all over the place, and I think this is a pretty standard bar and chain. So I went on Amazon and found that. I can link that in the description in case anyone really needs that particular model. And then I still needed the guide plates for the chain and the clutch cover for the side. Now those were a little trickier to find as they're not made anymore. Either one of those are not made. So I went on to another website called chainsawer.com, and according to the website, this is the largest inventory of chainsaw parts in the world, I guess, apparently. So I started searching on here, actually found Echo, and just started scrolling through all these parts. Well, I didn't really find exactly what I was looking for, so I shot the guy an email, and he emailed me back and told me that he had a brand new clutch cover. It's got a scratch in it, but it was a NOS, or new old stock, so I ordered this, as well as the guide plates. Now these guide plates were used, he said, but they were still in good working order, so I went ahead and ordered those too. That was probably the most expensive part of this whole saw. I think I spent with him was around 40 or 50 bucks, plus or minus right in there. So now my $6.40 saw is kind of creeping up there in price. A bar and chain was 25 or 30 bucks, so you know, we're getting up there. But it's still fun to fix up one of these old saws instead of buying some plastic junk, you know, from Home Depot or Lowe's. So now we're gonna go from a saw like this and back to this. So that's my little rebuild on this old Echo chainsaw. Hope you guys enjoyed watching that. If you did, please give a thumbs up and check out my channel. Check out my other videos. If you want to subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. Now go out there and get yourself a old vintage chainsaw. You know, they sell these things all over the place. They're at garage sales, they're on Craigslist, they're on Marketplace even, and a lot of times you can pick them up for little to nothing. This one was really cheap, but you know, those other ones maybe at a garage sale I've seen them for 10 or 20 bucks, and you know, a lot of people will use them for a while and then throw them under their workbench, and it'll sit there for years and years, and pick it up for cheap and probably clean the systems out on it and probably fire right up. So just do some research when you're looking at saws. Make sure you can get the parts for them. This one was a little trickier to get parts for. Echo is actually a Japanese brand. Maybe that's why a lot of stuff was discontinued for it. But if you get into a Still or a Steel, still haven't figured out how to say that, or even a McCulloch or a Craftsman, maybe those saws might have a little better availability on parts. So go check them out, go find one, and you don't really need to know a whole lot about them. You can just Google and look around on the internet and kind of figure it out, and it's kind of a lot of fun. All right, well, let's go chop some wood.